Okay, hey guys, it's Harley Quinn. As you can tell, it's nighttime, so my room's a little bit dark. This is the love of my life. He's 13 years old. I do not know what I'm gonna do when he dies. He's my baby. So anyway, on today's topic, it is yeast infections. We have all heard of them. Most of us have had one before. What it is a yeast infection of the vagina and the area around it called the vulva. All women have yeast in their vaginas, but it's an increase in the amount of yeast that causes an infection. So what are the signs of a yeast infection? Burning, redness, and swelling, pain when urinating, pain during sex, soreness, a thick white vaginal discharge that looks like cottage cheese and does not have a bad smell, a rash on the vagina. And just so you know, once again, I'm reading from a website. You don't have to have all of the symptoms to have a yeast infection. You just have, so just be careful, notice yourself, don't ignore it. If you think you have a yeast infection, call your doctor. The symptoms are very similar to chlamydia and gonorrhea, so you need to make sure that it's just a yeast infection and not something more serious. Also, going to the doctor is the only way that you're going to be able to get rid of it, unless you use like the over-the-counter meds, but you have to take medication to get rid of it. It's not just going to go away. Things that can increase your risk for getting a yeast infection are stress, lack of sleep, illness, poor eating habits, especially extreme amount of sugary foods, being pregnant, having your period, taking certain medications including birth control pills, antibiotics, and steroids, diseases such as poorly controlled diabetes and HIV/AIDS, and hormonal changes during your periods. So pretty much anything raises your risk for having a yeast infection. Oh joy. You can get a yeast infection from having sex. That means men, you can get them too. It's just not as common because typically girls don't have sex when you have a yeast infection. And if you didn't know, I just told you, don't have sex when you have a yeast infection. Yeast infections can be cured with antifungal medicines that come in creams, tablets, and or ointments and suppositories that are inserted into the vagina. They can be bought over the counter, like I said earlier. You can also go to your doctor and they can prescribe a single dose of oral, I'm not even going to try to say that word, it's like, I don't know, it's a certain kind of medication. But you can't use it if you're pregnant. Infections that don't respond to to those medicines are starting to become more common, and using the antifungal medicines when you don't really have a yeast infection can raise your risk of getting a hard-to-treat infection in the future. Other than that, if you have a yeast infection and you have sex, does your sexual partner need to be treated? About 12 to 15% of men get an itchy rash on their penis if they have unprotected sex with an infected woman. If this happens to your partner, he needs to see a doctor. Men who haven't been circumcised are at a higher risk. Lesbians may be at risk for spreading yeast infections to their partners. Research is still being done to know for sure. If your female partner has any symptoms, she should also be tested and treated. How can you avoid getting another yeast infection? Avoid douches. Avoid scented hygiene products like bubble bath sprays, pads, and tampons. Change tampons and pads often during your period. Avoid tight underwear or clothes made of synthetic fibers. Wear cotton underwear and pantyhose with a cotton crotch. Change out of wet swimsuits and exercise clothes as soon as you can. Avoid hot tubs and very hot baths. If you keep getting yeast infections, you need to call your doctor. About 5% of women get 4 or more vaginal yeast infections in 1 year. That's called recurrent vulvovaginal candidiasis, RVVC. It's more common in women with diabetes or weak immune systems, and doctors have to treat the problem with antifungal medicine for up to 6 months. So I hope that you have learned, well, hopefully a little more than a little about yeast infections. Be careful not to spread them. If you notice my arm moving, my cat's laying down and I'm petting him. Wow, I'm easily distracted. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great week, and I will see you next Thursday. Bye!